Now, I want to turn away from that story for a little bit. Good job, Roger Waters. And I want to present you with a little personal something. Right here, if you go to fantasticfiction.com, it's a great website, one of my favorites. You'll see a man's name, Thomas F. Monteleone. He's a multiple Bram Stoker Award winner, started writing science fiction. He's got all sorts of novels. He's got tons of short story collections and a publishing company called Borderlands Press. I'll enlarge that for you a little bit. And I hope that people will take this down. Borderlandspress.com. Borderlandspress.com. Check out all the great things that they put out. There's a recent novella from Tom called Time Walker. Very cool. Tom Monteleone, as you were probably aware, if you saw, let's say, I'll just put it into the search engine. What is it? Daily Beast. Tom Monteleone made the news a little while ago, about a week ago, as the Horror Writers Association, which has been trending woke for a number of years, and patting its members on the back when they say that, we gave X, Y, or Z type representative of this group of people an award. That's our first award to X, Y, or Z type person. Somehow that supposedly signifies virtue rather than looking at people's skin color, which is what it is. Looking at their skin color, their race, their ethnicity, whatever. It is racism. That's what it is. Tom comes from a generation of people, perhaps that had a larger population of people who just took people as people. And he grew up listening to jazz. A lot of different kinds of people mixing in. Uses terms like daddy-o and chick. Tom happened to nominate for an award within the Writers Guild in a sarcastic, sort of acerbic way, a smart white guy, he said, based on trying to be representative, based on the behavior of the Horror Writers Guild for so long. That caused a massive explosion. Tom is going to join us in just about 5 minutes. I want to give you an idea of what Tom is like. This is an interview from a number of years ago from the YouTube channel, The Funky Werepig. This was actually recorded at one of the conventions I attended with Tom in Rhode Island every year called NECON, the Northeast Writers Convention. They are banning Tom from returning.
And we're back with The Funky Werepig. Unless, of course, this is the first episode, then welcome aboard. So, what we do on The Funky Werepig is we get to interview some of the upcoming people, usually in the horror genre kind of thing, and other times we interview living legends. And we have one with us today, though he's going to be shy about it, so I'm going to keep prodding throughout the thing. Mr. Tom Monteleone. How are you, sir?
How you doing, man? Good
How
to
you
see
been, man?
I'm very good. Since I saw you 5 minutes ago, good.
That's right. This is so, it comes off natural, though.
Yeah, exactly.
It comes off natural. We both have that theater training, right?
Yes, actually we do. I spent a lot of time in community theater because I was writing scripts for these guys, and I couldn't help myself. I inserted myself onto the stage a few times. Why not, right?
You actually got up on the boards, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What was your biggest role? What was the one that you will, when you lay in bed at night, you just go, I crushed, I killed?
I was actually filling in. I was dating this girl at the time, and it was Soroyan's Time of Your Life. You know, that one, the big bar scene.
Yeah.
And everything takes place in the San Francisco bar. And the main guy is a guy named Joe, who basically just sits at a table, and people just keep coming in and out. All the other characters interact with him. And the guy didn't show up one night during rehearsal, and I was just sitting there watching this chick work. And they said, "Hey, Tom, would you come in and read Joe's lines?" And I went up there and I started reading the lines, and I kicked the lines ass, right? And the director says, "You know what? How about if you want to be Joe?" And the other guy that came, it's like Willie Pep and Lou Gehrig. It was great.
You snatched it away from the guy.
I took it right out of his mouth. Yeah.
He could have been something.
Yeah.
And you just.
So I did Joe, and it was great. I had a lot of fun doing it. And everybody said, "Well, you should do this more often." I said, "No, once is enough." Yeah, that's good.
Now
But I did show up in some of my own plays that I wrote.
Okay. Yeah. So you actually. Well, that's like Hollywood casting.
Huh?
That's just a shortcut. I wrote it, so I'm in it. That would be like a guy who's doing a talk show that says, just because I happen to invent it, I get to be the funky werepig. That's pretty egotistical.
But no, I prefer that to this kind of crap. Like, I'll never forget, there was this really bad movie called What Lies Beneath. You know that one?
Yes.
Really terrible. And if you get the DVD, there's this little thing at the end, a little featurette, where they have the actors talk about what they did in the film. And some of those are kind of interesting. This one was just kind of this exercise in egomania. And all the actors are talking about how wonderful this film was. And one guy actually said what all writers, want to choke somebody for. He actually said, "We were doing so many cool things on the set that we actually discovered that we didn't even need a script." Right? And I'm thinking, "Oh, you asshole!" Okay, it's like he's one of these guys that never thinks about where scripts come from.
That's right. Well, it's
like,
when a mommy script and a daddy script really love each other a lot.
And they make a script.
They make a baby script.
Or even more magical, they get up in the morning and if they come from FedEx.
That's right. The FedEx ferry brings it to them.
You know what I mean?
So,
the newest draft comes from FedEx every day.
Now, you knew, though, if I remember correctly, you wanted to be a writer in an early age, like 10, because correct me if I'm wrong, you had like scarlet fever, right? And then I had jungle fever once, but equally painful.
I also had a dengue fever.
Dengue? Well, that's a little bit more localized now, isn't it?
No, that's from the Amazon. It's where the Ananya River is.
I thought it was a physical reference to
the old dengue.
Yeah. So, but tell me about that. Your early love, because you knew.
I was really sick. I was sick for about 2 months, and I started reading all these old Ballantine paperbacks, and I read all these great people: William Tannen, Theodore Sturgeon, Fritz Leiber, Arthur C. Clarke. And I just realized this stuff didn't come out of the ground like an onion. Somebody had to create this stuff. Every word was written by someone. And when you're 10 years old, you don't see the world like that. You see the world in very global terms where things just simply are. And I think that was the very first time that I established a real sense of cause and effect, that books come from somewhere and they actually come from somebody thinking them up. And I thought, that sounds like a great gig. I'd like to try that. Of course, a couple of years there, it's like, careful what you wish for. So there's some years.
All right, folks, give you a little idea of my friend Tom Monteleone right there. It's funny, as I look over at the screen, the angle he's looking at, and when I look over to my left, it's like I'm looking over at him. That's kind of neat. I like that. And like I said, that was recorded at a place where I was probably right around the corner getting a hot dog. And just wonderful times with Tom. And Tom Monteleone, multiple Bram Stoker Award winner and writer extraordinaire, and a great mentor and friend to me, is with us right now, folks. Tom, welcome to the program, and thanks for joining us and taking the opportunity to tell us a little bit about what you've been experiencing. Welcome to the Liberty Conspiracy program and to the audience, Tom.
Hey, Gardner, it's a pleasure to be here with an outfit called the Liberty Conspiracy.
Yeah, I figured we could pull an ironic title because a lot of people don't really understand the principles of freedom and leaving their neighbor alone and not judging their neighbor if they are being peaceful people.
Oh, God, it's like words are violence now.
You know, and you could see it coming for decades.
They also say silence is violence,
right? You can't win either way, Tom, right? You can't win.
Oh my God, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is something else, folks. And folks, if you want to take the opportunity to head over to Borderlands Press, there it is on your screen. I'll blow it up a little bit so you can see it, just to let people know if you do want to find Tom's work and the Borderlands Press items. They're all right there. Just go to borderlandspress.com. You'll see a lot of Tom's work. And as I mentioned, if you go to Fantastic Fiction, you'll see Thomas F. Monteleone there with a great list of all his stuff. Tom, I gave people a little bit of an overview of what you've been experiencing. It's almost coming up on 2 weeks, maybe or so, since you ran into this mighty problem. But the problem really has been bubbling for quite a while. It's been on simmer for a while. And it really has to do with this trend amongst many of the people in not just the horror writers so-called community, but in so many areas of professional fiction and entertainment and things like that, to virtue signal, claim in a sort of cultural Marxist, Fabian socialist way, this slow march from the Frankfurt School to today, where certain words are verboten. Your lingo from the old jazz days, you can't say chick. You can't do that, you know.
Although they can.
Yeah, they can do that. And we'll go into one of the great examples of their amazing, stunning hypocrisy. They can do it if they believe in collectivism, if they believe in taking something from somebody or adjusting something politically for whatever end they think is fine. The ends justify the means. Tell us a little bit about what you had seen and how you, in a sort of facetious, sarcastic way, as people can see when they read your mafia columns from Cemetery Dance, they know that you've got a great sense of humor. As the nomination time came along for the Horror Writers Association for the Bram Stoker Awards, you and I had noticed
for the Lifetime Achievement Award.
It was Lifetime Achievement Award, right? And you and I had noticed for quite a while that the folks who were starting to hand out those awards there, and also at the Hugo Awards, they were starting to pat themselves, as I mentioned before I came over to you, they were starting to applaud themselves for picking X, Y, or Z representative of whatever so-called put upon community they decided. So in other words, they were engaging in racism.
Yeah, it was really getting weird, especially with the science fiction crowd, with the Nebula, and especially the Hugo Awards, which I'm not really connected to. I mean, I broke in writing science fiction, but I really haven't been part of that crowd for 25 years. But looking at the nominating list and the winners over the last 3 or 4 years in science fiction, it became very obvious that smart white men had lost the ability to write good science fiction. The ballots were filled with the usual, what they loved, the victim culture loves to call the marginalized peoples.
Right. And as you say
but
science.
You're not allowed to notice that.
Yes.
We're noticing it, we're mentioning it, we're commenting on it. You are, you're consigned to the outer darkness. You are a racist, a phobe, whatever.
Right, which is amazing, Tom, because
they believe it's not happening.
Yeah, and it's amazing because in a recursive way, it actually comes back to bite them. Their gaslighting about it shows. I thought they were the ones, as you said, who said your silence is violence. So you act right? So you're actually speaking up to say, hey, did you notice that over the past 10 years or so, you've been increasingly steering away from actually looking at the quality of the work? Because there must be some people who are the now marginalized white males who must be still writing some good stuff, but yet you're not paying attention to them. So why can't I call it up? Because if I'm silent, I'm violent about the plight of the new marginalized minority, the white guys, which,
they've really got the cultural Marxists have figured out this incredible dynamic where they can never be wrong, no matter what position they take.
Yeah, you got it. So as we walk through this, then it's coming up for as you said, Lifetime Achievement Awards. You've gotten one of the Lifetime Achievement Awards, and you've been to
I got it like 5 or 6 years back, and and a lot of people were very happy that I got it because I've been in this field 45 years. I've been running a boot camp for new writers for 20 years, something I certainly didn't need to do because it's a lot of work and a lot of aggravation. I've of those boot camp people, probably at least 50% of them went on to become professional writers.
Right here. You got one right here, man.
Yeah. I mean, I ran a boot camp. I had a small press where I promoted an anthology series that published at least 30% new people every time. I won 5 Graham Stoker Awards in 4 different categories. And I had an anthology series that Borderlands that won multiple awards.
Yeah.
On different platforms. It's not like I didn't fulfill their requirement to make a significant contribution to the genre.
Right.
I fucking contributed, man.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I did what needed to be done, and they gave it to me, and I'm thinking, okay, great. I think I deserved it, and you think I deserved it. So
Absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. As I mentioned to you, when I was working.
Not you, I meant the organization.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they said, okay, yeah, great. So anyway, I nominated this year. I noticed that over the last 3 or 4 years, most of the people getting the award have been the usual BIPOC, marginalized, people.
Right.
Which is fun. I have no problem with any of them getting the award if their credentials, dictate the merit to get it.
Right.
It's great. Not a problem at all.
Right.
I got no problem with that. But if anybody's read my Mafia column for any time since 1976.
And we should mention the Mafia column is in Cemetery Dance, the Mothers and Fathers Italian Association, where it's a nonfiction column. You talk about things in the industry or cultural things, you mix it up, and they're wonderful with the lingo that you use and the sarcasm and the humor, and you show what your character is like in those columns.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, well, I collected the first 50 into an omnibus book, and what a surprise! It won a Stoker Award for Best Nonfiction. So, people read it and people liked it.
Right.
And they liked the collected columns. Well, if anybody's read any of them, they know I'm a snarky, snide, wise guy, humor guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for the laugh. I'm going to go for the sly suggestion. And, either people either like that or they don't.
Right.
And a lot of people obviously liked it. But, now that column would be canceled. As a matter of fact, Cemetery Dance just did cancel me. They said they don't want the column anymore.
And it's amazing, Tom, because when you go into Facebook and you see the comments of various people, they were saying, what took Cemetery Dance so long? Obviously, that means they're corrupt. There's a problem with Richard Chismar, who's the publisher. Richard Chismar, a man who survived cancer and has all these different things going on in his life that he's trying to get done with this independent platform he's putting out for a long time, and they were ready to attack him for not.
No way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of that.
Yeah, and good for you.
He got attacked for carrying my column.
Oh yeah, and what I think is really admirable, Tom, is that you stood up as you noticed, and I'll take the steps here. A while back, I want to go back a little bit, Tom, before this nomination of Mr. Schiff for the Lifetime Achievement Award, a man who clearly deserved it. We'll go into some of the reasons that he deserved this. And
we should, because there's a whole generation of people that don't even know that he ever existed.
Oh yeah, and there are a lot of writers whose first opportunities to get published or second opportunities to get published came from him,
Oh, without a doubt.
Exactly. And from you.
And that was at a time when the horror genre was on life support.
Yes.
This is pre-King Stephen.
Yeah, we're talking late 70s, early 80s.
Early 60s, late 70s.
Horror
genre was totally dead.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
There weren't even any markets where you could sell a horror story.
Well, so Tom, just to go back a little bit before this, let's go back just a couple years to give people a little taste of the storm that was brewing amongst these people, I think, The sense that I got was that they liked the horror genre as fans, but as writers, oftentimes they wanted to infuse this political correctness, wokeness, cultural Marxism, and identity politics in there to try to prove a point, and also, in a way, almost sideline get up beside the literary fiction genre, which is just an actual ash heap of nonsense that's filled with political correctness. And it was sort of like they just want to be dark literary fiction writers. And a few years ago, a particular author was given an award. This author came from some foreign country, from a marginalized group. I didn't think anything of it. I just was like, oh, well, then the story must have been a really good story.
Are you talking the World Fantasy Award?
It was in this case, it was one of the Bram Stoker awards, but the World Fantasy ended up doing the same sort of thing. Yes.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Yes. Yes. And I didn't know anything about this author. And sometimes when you hear about an author with a funky name, you say to yourself, "Oh wow, maybe this comes from some other country, and publishing hasn't been that big around, so maybe I'll check it out. That sounds really cool. Glad they dug it up."
That's the usual thing people want to do. They say, "Oh wow, I never heard of this person. He's getting recognition. I need to check him out."
Right. And then I checked him out.
And you know what? That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. If the work is meritorious, if the writer has exactly. And so instead of saying, "Hey, we nominated this great story, blah 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 blah. Check out this new writer," right? It wasn't like that at all. It was, check out writer X of X culture. That this is the first time we brought in from X culture. And the focus started to be on the culture, the race, the sex, the ethnicity, the gender identity. All the stuff just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And you're a generation ahead of me, and you've seen it even more, because you came from a generation of people who mixed at the jazz clubs, hung out, saw these changes in the marches of MLK and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden to see these people go over the top and use it as a way to start pushing people away, to errantly claim that people are racist just because they don't identify someone according to his skin color. It's completely flipped its lid. So now we get to your nomination of a man after you have seen all this happening, and this trend, especially in the horror writers community, where they might not overtly say, "Oh, we're going to nominate X, Y, or Z category of person," but if they don't fill enough nomination slots, there's some rumbling and people aren't happy. And if they win an award, that's when these people feel at their noblest. And there's just something weird about that, because it doesn't have anything to do with merit.
Well, look, conservatives, libertarians, if we don't champion the meritocracy, nobody will.
Yeah.
Okay? I believe that, if you got the goods, if you fucking show up, you deserve whatever you get.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. If you don't show up, you don't need to apply with me.
Right.
But the point is, Stuart, I mean, if anybody had access to the letter, my nominating letter, yeah, I threw in a few snide remarks because that's who I am, but I nominated Stu, and I said, even though it's not fashionable to nominate smart white guys, this guy deserves the award. That's essentially what I said.
Yeah. Would you like me to call up the letter, and you can tell us a little bit about this? And before we even do that, Tom, I do want to mention, prior to this, about 5 years ago, you were preparing to put out another one of your award-winning, amazing breakthrough anthologies. And I say that in all honesty, because when I first picked one up, I didn't even know you. I got it in Vancouver, and I was like, whoa. It was, the Borderlands series of books.
Yeah.
And on Facebook, I distinctly remember that you had said, and I mentioned this to the audience a couple times, Tom, when I first heard about this, you strip the identities and names off of all the people, and you read the stories because you just want good stories. And they attacked you, saying that you're not trying to be inclusive enough. You should be more representational of X, Y, or Z. And then you returned and said, hey, if I'm a basketball coach, I'm not looking at skin color. I want guys who can drive the lane. And then they attacked you for that.
Yeah, exactly. Because basketball is one of those cultural third rails, right?
Yeah.
It's like watermelon. You're not supposed to mention it.
Yeah, right, exactly. You can't mention any of this stuff. It's and the amazing thing that gets me, Tom, is these are people around whom we have hung out. And as you and I know, you go to the conventions, you have a lot of disagreements and differences with people, but you get along. And yeah, sometimes you feel like maybe the people think they're like one too many IQ points above you, that they're sort of, tolerating you because they just can't understand how you can possibly be one of those weird freaks who actually believes in freedom and isn't woke and isn't sensitive to everything and pushing people around and accusing them of being racist at every turn, right? You know?
Well, one of my buddies that I hung out at the Nikon convention for 20 years, Rick Hautala. You
Yeah,
know Rick real well.
sure. Rest in peace, Rick.
Yeah, I mean he was a rampant radical lib,
Yeah.
and we were really good friends, and we used to joke about our political differences.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had
And
no problem with any of that.
no,
And
yeah. Yeah.
like he sent me like at least 7 or 8 stories for my Borderlands anthology. I Even though he was a really good friend, I rejected every one of them
Yep.
because they weren't Borderlands stories. Rick had this, like, remember the Doctor Strangelove movie where Doctor Strangelove couldn't stop his arm from coming up?
Yes. Yes.
Well, Rick couldn't stop from writing ghost stories.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He loved that genre. He loved it.
Oh my God! And I kept telling Rick, we don't do ghost stories. Borderlands doesn't do serial killers, vampires, zombies, ghosts. That's not what we're all about.
Right. Right. You even put it in the guidelines. I remember.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And he would say, "I can't help it." But we had fun with it. We were okay with it.
Yeah, yeah, and Tom, there's another thing I want to bring up before we go into the nomination of Mr. Schiff, which is, as I mentioned to you on the phone, and I mentioned to people on the program, um, just around the time of the Harvey Weinstein accusations, a lot of those people who were in the writers' community, again, with their hearts on their sleeves, just how much is too much? I think I know now because I've seen how much they do this. Sort of like the Morgan Freeman thing when he's talking with Don Lemon and Don Lemon's saying, well, the racism and stuff. And he goes, yeah, but there's a point at which you got to you're going to be actually making it worse. Like,
I thought Morgan Freeman was brilliant when Don Lemon says, well, what do you think of all the racism in this country? And Freeman started to laugh and he said, Don, if this was a racist country, you and I wouldn't be here right now.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an amazing thing.
God bless Freeman for being that, candid.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. So as a quick example, I'll give you 2 quick examples to the audience, and I'll repeat them to you, Tom. Is just when the Harvey Weinstein stuff was coming up, all over their Facebook pages is, oh, ladies, use my Facebook page to talk about your experiences and so on and so forth. And okay, fine, that's cool. They're using hashtag don't victim shame, don't blame the victim, and so on and so forth. Okay, fine, that's cool. I don't know how much you push it before it's too much and you're really indulging that and actually creating the culture of victimization or fostering it even further than Oprah did on her stupid show, and they did even in the 70s with people like Phil Donahue and all the different, Ms. Magazine and so on. It was always culture of the victim. However, yeah, and
well, yeah, that's been an industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I said, okay, your prerogative, whatever you want to do. But then a week after they started pushing all this stuff, and they're so sensitive, so caring, Rand Paul encounters this attack from his neighbor. He's beaten to possibly dying if he punctured lung, lost capacity in one of his lungs, took months to recuperate, and didn't really even fully heal. And on this page, a number of those very same people, but not all, said it couldn't have happened to a better guy. And
there's a segment of the left, and there's a slice on the right that they're vicious.
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of either of those.
Well, this is the thing. Now that you have spoken up, for a sense of balance and recognition of, hey, you kind of have gone too far with your identity politics, because now you're actually engaging in racism to promote people based on their skin color, not on the quality of their work. And you've experienced this. Then the second thing that I'll mention is they had this free speech rally in Boston put on by a dude from India, a guy who's married to a Filipino woman. But it was at that time when any rally that might speak up for free speech rather than support of Antifa and their fascist tactics to suppress free speech, and their attacks on gay conservative guys like Milo Yiannopoulos, that all comes in to Boston and is used to lever against these people who simply were having a rally on free speech. So what happens? The mayor of Boston gets on there and says, we don't know who these people are. He has a press conference. We don't know who these people are, but they're not welcome. Oh, no, it was the governor. They're not welcome in our state. It was the governor and the mayor together, both Charlie Baker, and the mayor of Boston at that time.
Know who they are, but they're not welcome.
Yes, I mean,
that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. And nobody in the crowd, not one reporter said, by the way, did you notice that the two phrases you just offered are contradictory? How can you know they're hateful if you don't know who they are, right? I mean, there's a pretty 99% chance that you're actually talking gibberish there. But the other part of it is the mayor of Boston then came up. They had a dual press conference, and he said, yeah, and they don't have a license. They're not permitted. They don't have a permit for this meeting. So while I was watching on WBZ TV, I actually got on Facebook to their Facebook page, and for a week they had posted the picture of their permit. So you had two liars in politics merely trying to frame these guys, and partially because of that, they had thousands of people, including numerous people whom you and I know from these conventions, from the horror writer circles, and they were bragging, they were patting themselves again, applauding themselves. One of them was like live tweeting from the train as he was going down to meet the other leftists who live in Massachusetts to go oppose these awful people. And they didn't even know what they were there for. They were just going to oppose them because they thought they were Trumpists or something. They didn't know that they were there to speak about free speech. They claimed that these guys were racist. So a dude from India and a guy who's married to a Filipino woman who helped organize this, clearly racist. I mean, just absurd.
Yeah, well, see, that's because it's the paw prints of the uninformed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We see this all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So
people attacking me, never read me.
Yeah.
Have no idea who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm really okay with it.
And that's what I think is really, that's all. Yeah.
In publishing since when dinosaurs ruled the earth in the 70s. And, I stand by the stuff that I've published. If people find it good, that's good.
Yeah.
If people find it offensive, that's okay too.
And that was what I loved. That's what I loved about your Mafia columns.
Yeah.
And you were just flat out.
People are acting like they never existed. Who is this fucking guy? How could he have said such things?
Right.
Where have you been for the last 45 years? I've been writing that column for 45 years.
And I was reading it before I knew you. And I remember one of the first times you were critical of Rush Limbaugh. And then I'm like, who? And I was like, and yet you're a pro-liberty / conservative guy. And I'm like,
and I actually ended up really liking Rush.
Yeah.
I thought that the more I listened to him, the more I was so totally impressed with his ability to analyze whatever event or situation, and he would be able to totally deconstruct it and tell you why things were happening the way they were.
Well, and you got the smarts. Yeah, and you also had the smarts to recognize that his bombast on the radio was just a joke, which I thought was really pretty darn cool.
Early on, it was he had this wonderful shtick,
Yeah.
With the feminazis and the wildlife thing and everything. I loved when he used to do the NFL football thing every week.
Yeah.
Where he would compare the teams and who the conservatives and liberals would cheer for.
That was great. Yeah, he would give his picks.
The Vikings are playing the Jaguars. Well, the mean old white men are fighting the furry little kittens.
Yeah, the endangered jaguar. We got to go with the jaguar. They're gonna win.
Right. I mean, he was just classic.
Yeah, it's true. So, Tom, with this as preface, then now, and I hope that's actually been really interesting talking about this sort of preparatory stuff, and you responding to some of the things that I say, because I know you saw some of these in little snapshots and have your own snapshots. So let's go to your snapshots as a clunky segue perhaps, and talk a little bit about this new. You had the opportunity to send a letter out to the Horror Writers Guild, the Horror Writers Association, for the lifetime achievement for Bram Stoker after all this sort of buildup of wokeism and this identity politics stuff that seemed to be infusing what should be an award for quality work, and in this case for lifetime achievement. And you sent a letter to them. And would you like me to read some of it, or would you like to read some of it?
No, you can do it. You got it in front of you.
Yeah, I'll bring some of it up on the screen for the audience here, and I'll enlarge it a little bit here. And do you want me to start at the beginning, Tom?
Whatever you want.
All right, sounds good.
Is pertinent.
Yep.
I mean, because you can't go into Stewart's list of accomplishments because they're legion.
Yeah.
I mean, he was amazing when there was no horror genre.
Oh, now hold on a second. You said his accomplishments are legion. Is that like the devil, like Satan, or is that just multiple pronouns? We are legion.
We're talking lots of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So here's the opening of the letter, everybody, from Tom Monteleone to the and to whom was this addressed? Would you like to mention, Tom?
Yeah, I posted it to the HWA website. Not website, to the HWA Facebook page, where they had invited people to nominate people for the Lifetime Achievement Award.
All right.
So I submitted it, but it has to go through a gatekeeper. Because when you submit anything to the HWA Facebook page, you get a response which says, we need to approve this before we're going to allow it to get posted.
I see. Okay.
So
and
I sent it in, say on I don't remember, it was like a Tuesday. By Friday, well, that's cool. I don't see my post, right? It's not good. And I'm thinking, okay, I know what happened. It got the nut squeeze. They're not going to let it go on.
Yeah.
So I put it on my own Facebook page, right?
Sounds cool.
I posted it.
Right.
And, then the knives came out and, the shitstorm started.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, what happened after that was unfortunate for me because some guy calls me up. He had a live stream podcast and he called me at like 11:30 at night. And I had already gone through the shitstorm and I was pissed off and I had drank a little bourbon. And I agreed to go on their fucking podcast, and I said some personal shit that I shouldn't have against a couple of people. I was being stupid. And for that, I apologize, and I reached out to the people that I said dumb stuff about. I apologized, they accepted, and, end of story. But my original positions, I stood by. The Stewart Schiff deserved this award. And be way beyond some of the people that they've already given it to.
Yeah,
and because I took that position, I was Savonarola. Okay.
Yeah.
They were, everybody got out their Zippos, man. They were ready to burn me at the stake.
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for the horses' heads to start appearing in your bed. Just unbelievable. So and by the way. On that podcast, I do have some comments about that podcast because I got to listen to it. But let's go to the letter and just read a little bit about of this.
Yeah, please do.
Sure. So Tom writes, I understand you are the current chair for the Lifetime Achievement Award. Do you want to mention who that is, Tom?
Well, his name is Kevin Wetmore.
Kevin Wetmore. Okay. All right.
Which is kind of ironic, but
yeah. Well, at least he's proud to hold on to his name. Having served on that committee myself, I know what an, quote, interesting, end quote, snake pit it can be. That said...
It's amazing. I was on that committee. more than interesting.
More, sort of like that, may you live in interesting times thing, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It said, that said, and despite the last few LAA, that's Lifetime Achievement Award years, looking very much like a very obvious DEI, that's diversity, equity, and inclusiveness project, I am compelled to nominate a smart old white guy, Stu Schiff. That would be detonation time just there, Tom,
Oh,
right?
I rolled a fucking hand grenade under their door. Okay? Oh my God. Just saying that ignited them. You know, it was like it wasn't crystal knocked, it was comets knocked. Okay?
And then you go into some of the bona fides of Stuart David Schiff. As you mentioned, he graduated from Columbia University School of Dental and Oral Surgery, from Cornell. He spent 8 years in the U.S. Army that featured him for Fort Benning's Jump School and a 2-year general dentistry residency. After leaving the service, he joined a dental group in Endicott, New York, where IBM was born, and retired in 2011 after 31 years in practice. And all that while at Fort Bragg, he started Whispers magazine, named after a fictitious journal in an H.P. Lovecraft story, and also began his Whispers Press that has published books by Lovecraft, Fritz Leiber, Robert Bloch, F. Paul Wilson, and Isaac Asimov. These endeavors led to his editing.
Who are those guys?
I know, I can't, but those terrible people. And of course, people bring up H.P. Lovecraft. Oh, he was a racist and so on and so forth. It's like, okay, all right, let's just continue here. These endeavors led to his editing more than a dozen anthologies and collections, publishing 9 books and 25 issues of Whispers, winning the first World Fantasy Award and 3 others. In addition, he won a British Fantasy Award, earned 2 grants from the National Endowment for the Arts, and had 2 Hugo Award nominations. He was guest of honor at the 2014 World Fantasy Convention. His first editing and publishing experiences were in 1972 with HPL, a Lovecraft fetish script. In it, he worked with Frank Belknap Long, Robert Bloch, Fritz Leiber, Manly Wade Wellman, Joseph Payne Brennan. By the way, as I mentioned to you on the phone, if folks were listening, I got to read Canavan's Backyard and Canavan's Calling over the past couple weeks, so they're familiar with his work. E. Hoffman Price, Lee Brown Coy, Virgil Finlay, and others. When Arkham House declined his offer to edit the Arkham Collector, his Whispers magazine was birthed. Publishers Weekly called Schiff's Whispers, quote, a fertile ground for the imagination, a field in which nightmares graze. Now, Tom, you went to a lot of effort to research this for your nomination of him. Clearly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I tried to make a case for him.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, you know, to this younger generation of mooks and chooches, they don't know who he is.
Right.
So I try to take him to school a little bit.
Yeah, and what's interesting,
if it wasn't for him and King Stephen, we wouldn't have an HWA.
Absolutely right. They allowed that genre to flourish and attracted so many more people who got to read their stories to say, "Wow, I like this genre. I want to do something here." Just like when you discovered those Ballantine sci-fi books when you were a kid, you know?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what I think is interesting in your letter, Tom, we're speaking with Tom Monteleone, folks. Go to borderlandspress.com to find out more. Go to Fantastic Fiction. Look up Tom Monteleone or Thomas Monteleone. M-O-N-T.
Well, be careful because the trolls are putting all kinds of weird shit on my Facebook. I mean, on my Wikipedia page.
Yeah, Wikipedia. Well, you might be aware.
I haven't gotten a mess with it, but it's getting kind of poisonous.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because, of course, they're so lily white and such good people that, of course, they've got to go in and start sabotaging the truth, right? It just makes sense. It's sabotage the truth so that the outcome is what we want. Cultural Marxism. So, and what I think is interesting about your letter, Tom, and we'll head over to your conclusion here, is that line that you mentioned, a quick throwaway sarcastic line, not necessarily throwaway, but a witty line about what you've been observing and what many of us have been observing in various writer circles for over 2 decades now, at least. It was just a brief mention. Then you go into some really strong information about this man. and a nice honorable letter about a man who deserves some recognition. And sure, he did well in the market, hopefully with the anthologies. But it would be nice if you've got this professional organization. Maybe people could remember what he did to help everybody. So you conclude with saying, Kevin, I'm sure a majority of our membership has never heard of Stu, but he is the definition of having made a significant contribution to the field. In those pre-Stephen King days, he single-handedly kept the horror/dark fantasy genre alive. It is way past time to recognize Schiff for his wonderful achievements and legacy. I know it appears to be not very fashionable to select straight white males, but Stu deserves a Lifetime Achievement Award. I believe it is an embarrassment to HWA to have ignored him for so long. Please pass this note along to the other committee members. Who are they, by the way? Thanks for tuning in. Tom Monteleone. So, Tom, you got slammed for that, and you heard.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I got savage.
Now,
Yeah.
do you want to bring up any anecdotes on that, or do you want to talk about how you responded? And then we'll go into a little bit of that podcast. And I just want to give you some commentary as a person who listened to it, and I
Yeah, I
understand
actually have not gone back to listen to it.
it doesn't sound bad at all to me.
Well,
The only
I said some dumb stuff,
well
and
here's the thing,
I
folks.
referred to I referred to the an experience we had at the Denver StokerCon last year.
Right. And I'm glad you're talking about the context of
Oh, it
yeah,
was such a grim affair. I mean, almost every panel, every event was suffused with this identarian nonsense,
right.
and it just took the air out of everything. I mean,
Yes.
we were doing this documentary with some ex for filmmakers that had nothing to do with HWA,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they're going to have to edit me out because I'm a persona non grata now.
Of course.
But other than some of the documentary filming, which was fun with Paul Wilson, the convention was not really all that enjoyable. And Paul, when we were flying back, I'm good friends with Paul Wilson.
Yeah.
And we've been like buds for 40 years.
And co-written novels with him as well.
Yeah, he's just a sweet guy.
Great guy.
But Paul says on the plane, he says, "Wow, they're going to rename it." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "They can't call it the StokerCon anymore. They have to call it the WokerCon."
That's classic. Oh man, that's awesome. What a line.
Kind of weird like that. But there was this one woman, although she calls herself binary, so I'm not sure how to describe. She came off as really kind of off the wall to me, and I mentioned it on that podcast, and I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have just said, don't say anything.
Well, the other thing that I'll bring up.
That's the evils of drink,
But what's interesting, Tom, is if they listen to it, and again, I don't. It's I can't even remember the name of the podcast. But it's a conversation with you guys talking, chatting, and you mentioned this.
And I'm all liquored up. Okay.
Yeah. But
I apologize for that.
Yeah, but I got to say, even as you were, going through this hour and a half thing, and you're sipping, and those guys are, talking and so on, and what I thought was interesting is that your descriptors of the situation and how this woman got up and started slamming the idea that the Stoker Awards, the H.P. Lovecraft concept of there's so much racism within this community, and she basically was dismissive of the people who had just given her an award.
I've seen that twice actually.
Yeah, it's
when I was at World Fantasy the last time that we went to the one in England. It was in Brighton.
Yep, I was there. I remember this.
And there was the woman who won for Best Novel. Her name was Sophia Somitar.
Yep.
And she got up, and they gave her the award. And of course, it was the Lovecraft likeness, the Gay and Wilson sculpture.
Yep.
And she says, well, isn't certainly, I forget, I paraphrase, but she says something like, well, this is certainly the elephant in the room, and she went on to say that she didn't feel good accepting the award in the likeness of a racist, right? And I'm sitting there, and Paul is like grabbing my shoulders, because I'm ready to stand up and scream, and he's grabbing me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like yelling out, well, then don't fucking accept it.
Exactly.
If you are that committed to your position, good, right or wrong, good or bad, you should say, I'm really sorry, but I can't accept this image of a racist.
Exactly.
But you know what she did? She fucking accepted it and took it home and put it in her fucking house.
Yep.
So can you say disingenuous?
Absolutely. And even if one agreed with her, somebody might want to come up to her and say, you kind of undercut your own argument by actually accepting the award. I mean, come on.
And let me tell you, it took every ounce of strength in Paul Wilson's frail arms to keep me from standing up and screaming at her, because she really pissed me off.
Well, okay, and that was a great story that you had in that podcast, Tom, and I think it gave people an idea of what you and I have been seeing at these award ceremonies, all this cultural, political correctness, and the only thing that I found where people thought you said something objectionable, actually, if you had been part of the woke mob and you were part of that group, it actually would have been acceptable and one of their great prides. We always hear this term fat pride or fat acceptance, right?
No, I said fat black chick.
Right.
And you know what? If the wokesters are referring to Lizzo, the big obese, morbidly obese singer,
right?
They're being cool.
Yeah,
Lizzo, she's the fat black chick. She cool.
Exactly.
That's no problem.
Right.
But we can't say that. We're just not allowed to say it. And I fucked up. Look, mea culpa. I had 4 years of Latin at a Jesuit high school. I know when I fucked up. And I should have not said that. Okay? But again, she did a really weird thing. They gave her an award, and she got up and referenced a poem she had written called Stoker's So White. And I thought, what?
So
who are you?
So
what is the point of this? Why are you bringing this up?
And what's interesting is if you actually take each one of those words and study each one of those words, as you say, every one of those words was actually correct and
it checked all the boxes that are true.
Exactly. And as you say, and as I mentioned, if the words had been spoken from a politically acceptable person within a certain group,
which I'd already heard them describe Lizzo.
Yeah, if you had been part of her PR team and making a lot of money with CAA, you would have been all set. Yeah, it's amazing. And then she's got the gall to go out and say that, and then people look at you as being the bad guy.
Well, you know what? I did extend an apology.
And that was very nice. And I read.
And guess what? And she was gracious enough to communicate with me, and we're okay now.
And I read on Facebook that she was upset about that, and that's really cool that you extended an apology.
I sent her a note. I said, look, I said some really dopey things, and I'm really sorry.
Right.
And is there anybody walking the earth that doesn't have regrets?
Right.
I need to meet that guy.
Right. But what's interesting is if you had said, she's proudly fat or whatever, and not to, won't continue too much on this, but there's so many areas where because something else is attached to something, they immediately will try to ascribe to you some racial hatred. And you're about as far from a racially hating guy. You've been through it all, Tom. These people in this new generation, or this couple generations behind you, they have benefited from how open you have been to ideas. You're the guys in your generations, and
Yeah,
how
they don't
also,
understand that we actually were very anti racist, pointy-headed nonsense. We had no interest in any of that shit.
exactly.
Yeah.
And what I think is interesting too, Tom, is you've had women, you've had men in your anthologies, even at a time when a number of years ago, like I said, when you mentioned you strip the names off, you don't think about men or women. What I think is interesting, Tom, is, as you know, for a number of years I worked part-time in my spare time in a bookstore, Annie's Book Stop, a number of
Oh,
stores around.
Annie. Yeah, of course, of
Sure.
course.
Yep.
Sure.
Absolutely. And as
No,
as
no. Well,
yeah, and as the owner told me when I first started, she said, "Look, what you're going to find is 90% of what we sell are romance novels, and women are our main customers. And you'll find that it's 99.9% women who write the novels." Now, I have never heard anybody within this genre of horror writers or with any other circles saying that men are not represented enough in romance novels, and we have to bend and shape these awful sexist women who just want to read romance novels by women. I don't
good.
hear that.
God, that's so perceptive. That is such a brilliant perception.
Well,
And you
it's
know what?
it's just from
You're
experience,
never,
right?
Leonard, you're never going to hear that
Yeah. No, it's
because
yeah.
that isn't going to change the demographic.
Yeah.
The people that are reading those novels want the novels to be written by people, women, who share their emotional and situational experiences. I
Exactly.
mean, there's a reason why those writers are popular.
Exactly. And we know this. And I have had many conversations with women who have come into the bookstores, and I have seen them, and they can tell when a guy is trying to write a romance novel and when a woman's doing it. It's different. Women concentrate on colors more, and they go into more detail about the settings. Men are much more plot driven. They don't have it.
Yeah.
Yep, it's just the way it is. And a great example of it, I think, is if you look at Faye Kellerman's novels, her suspense novels, and Jonathan Kellerman's suspense novels, you'll notice that his are much more plot driven and much more sparse in the language. And
Oh,
it's
and hers are really emotionally driven.
exactly. And people say, well, that's just a difference between people. You're avoiding the individuality. All I'm saying is that men and women are different. And if you understand that men and women are different, you'll be honest and say that the market will cater to men and women differently because men and women will buy certain things and drive the market in a certain direction. It's just ridiculous to claim that the publishing industry is not representational enough of X, Y, or Z when one of the major portions of the publishing industry always gets overlooked by the woke crowd. And they will never talk about that because it undercuts their
Oh,
argument.
Gardner, that is so perceptive. My God, I have never seen that observation and analysis anywhere.
Well, I'm
But
sure if I were to bring it up on Facebook,
it is so on point. It
well,
is so on point.
Tom,
And
I've been tempted to post that on Facebook in some of
well,
the
you should,
comments.
because it really reveals, the disingenuous positions
Yeah.
of these self-imposed, self-proclaimed critics or whoever they are.
I'll give you another example.
Arbiters of talent
Yeah,
and
yeah,
ability.
yeah.
It's unbelievable. I'm
Yeah.
okay with moving forward if you're okay. But what I wanted you to make sure you let your people know, we had Borderlands Press had probably 75 titles over the years in ebook availability, plus my books and all the Borderlands anthologies. The guy that controlled our ebook publication platform informed me that he was canceling all our agreements because we had a 30-day cancellation, which is great. I agree with that anyway. And he's no longer making any of our stuff available in ebook. So if anybody's looking for our stuff and they go on Amazon,
Yeah.
it's not there.
So what will you do now, Tom? Do you have any thoughts on?
Well, no, I have several other ebook platforms that we're going to work with, and everything will eventually be back online. But I just want to make sure people know that there are people out there who believe they have the ability to destroy you, that they have the ability to say, I don't agree with what you think, therefore I'm going to stop your ability to survive.
Yeah.
And that's what that guy did. And you know what? I'm absolutely okay with that, because I've known the guy for 30 some years, and I've always known that he was the antipodes of, my political views on everything. And I was able to still work with him.
Yeah.
I would never say, you know what, you're a rabid liberal asshole, and
Yeah.
I don't want to do business with you. Because hail capitalism. That's
Right.
why we're a great country. Right?
Absolutely. And Tom, you've taken what I think is interesting is you didn't try to monitor what was happening after they shut the door on you. You didn't try to wedge in. Maybe occasionally you would hear something like I just brought something up to you and you say, "Oh wow, that was going on with Cemetery Dance or whatever." And it's difficult because obviously some of this information is going to come through to you. You've got your family, you've got your loved ones, and you've had this career that has just been not just remarkable for you professionally, but remarkable in the very uplifting way that you've helped people like me, and you've worked with that Paul Wilson and some wonderful people doing Borderlands Boot Camp, and just your writing itself. So I can go into other things. We can wrap up at any time, but I do want to mention. Do you want me to go in this other document and tell people a little bit about this second piece of the puzzle in any way? Because I don't want to go too far into the weeds if you wouldn't want to, but it could be interesting for people, that sort of thing.
Well, I thought it was interesting that one of my readers sent me an email saying that she had nominated people for the Lifetime Achievement.
Mm-hmm.
And got that response from Kevin Wetmore. Did you make sure your people know about that?
No, tell me a little bit about this.
A couple of days ago, I got an email, and I said from a reader, and she said, I'm a member of HWA, I'm an affiliate, and I nominated some people for the Lifetime Achievement Award. They happen to all be men,
Yeah.
That's beside the point. And she got a response from Kevin Wetmore, which I sent to you, which I had redacted. And she asked me if I would redact her name, and and I said, of course, because she doesn't want to get the torch and pitchfork people showing up at her door.
Yeah.
But he sent her an email back saying basically, I should thank you for your nominations, but I should advise you that I have instructed our committee to prioritize women, because only 6 of the last 50 some Lifetime Achievement people have been women.
So it's a loose quota. They've got a loose quota.
Yeah, he admitted that, the agenda that I slyly suggested they were doing is what they're fucking doing.
Exactly what they're doing. Exactly, Tom. Yeah. And you've got the document. This is the amazing thing.
I sent it to you if you want to put it up.
Yeah, let me see if I'll see if I've got that. I've got this
it's
other.
At the bottom of that blog, some guy blogged defending me, saying that Orwell.
Oh yeah, so defending blog. Yeah, it's at the bottom. Let me go down here. So yeah, we have Horror Writers Association cancels Thomas Monteleone, a 1984 moment, February 1st. All right, so we'll scroll down here, and we'll continue down into page 2.
Yeah.
And here we go. From Kevin Wetmore.
Love that name, by the way.
Yes, indeed. And we've got his email right there, to redacted. Dear redacted, always a pleasure to hear from you. I hope this email finds you well, safe, and healthy at holiday time. Thank you for your nominees. They have been added to the list. In the interest of full disclosure, given that only 6 of the 54 Lifetime Achievement Awards have been awarded to women, I have asked the committee to prioritize female nominees. Oh, isn't that nice? See,
Yeah.
they think that's good. They actually think that that is good.
But I called their ass on it.
Exactly.
And they
You knew.
infuriated me.
Right.
But I have it right there. They admitted that exactly what I slyly, snidely suggested in my nomination was going on. Oh, it's going on.
It is. It is. How do they excuse that? First, they might deny it. Then, when you bring it up, how do they excuse it? They don't excuse it. They accuse you of being too white centric and you of being the bad guy for bringing up the fact that they're not concentrating on quality of the work, which is always what you concentrate on. And instead, they are focusing on gender, race, and sex. They're the
Yeah.
people who are doing it. They're the culprits.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
incredible.
But for that, they expelled me from HWA.
Yeah.
And they try to strip me of my achievement awards, which the bylaws didn't allow them to do, by the way.
Yes, I noticed that. And by the way, you probably saw within Facebook, there was so much communication as people tried to go through and find any possible way they could do it. And these are people.
No, I didn't. I haven't. I've been avoiding all
Yeah,
that.
and Tom, I resist. I it's the typical group that the audience doesn't know, but there are certain names that we could bring up and so on. It's that typical group, that spiteful, angry group that's holier than thou that we always would see at the conventions. And yeah, we could get along, we get, and so on, but they would always try to depict themselves as the holier than thou wokesters who are so accepting of everything that they have to shut down anything and continue to be the gatekeepers.
Well, you know what's really interesting, Gardner, is that a considerable percentage of those guys I have voiced lots of support for over the years.
Yeah.
I have supported and promoted and praised the work of quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And they just they rolled on me, like a caterpillar steamroller. They just, yeah, it's okay, Tom. All the great stuff you said for me and did for me and published for me, and doesn't mean dick. Well, that's fine. I'm cool with it. Now
Yeah.
you know. Now I know.
It's interesting, Tom. I'm reflecting on how long I've known you, and what's funny is that if I were just meeting you today and I didn't know you or anything, I'd still be sitting here nodding, going, I like this guy.
I've never. You know what? You can't bullshit a bullshitter. So I have always tried to be straight up.
Yeah.
And if I like you, I like your work. I don't like you, I don't like your work. You're gonna know it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like I have no percentage in playing con games. That's not what I'm all about.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what I really think. You don't like what I think? Great. You do like what I think? That's also great.
I like that. Yeah. Our guest is Tom Monteleone. And Tom, before we wrap up, I want to mention if people want, they can go to Borderlands Press. They can go there now, check things out, wait a couple weeks, then start doing some more orders, put orders in. Go to Borderlands.
Let them know that the ebook thing is in flux right now.
Okay, that sounds good. And also, Tom, if you don't mind, we are going live on Rockfin, ROKFIN, and on my Twitter feed. And I will split this off with your permission and put this out on my Substack for my subscribers at Substack if you're interested. And if not, we don't have to do that, but it would be, I think, a good thing. But I'm very interested, Tom, in getting the responses from people. They have a chat section in Rockfin where people write their comments, and I probably have missed lots of comments as you and I have been going through. But I'd like to invite any of the listeners who would like to type up some comments about what they're hearing about Tom and his experience to please feel free to do so. And Tom, I'd love to read just a couple of these before we say goodnight and that sort of thing. And
Yeah,
I'll
and I'd be happy to plug into that if you send me the links. I'll be happy to.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, if let me see if I can. I probably can't do it right now, but if you just go to Rockfin,
No,
yeah, ROKFIN on your computer,
yeah,
um, and then you'll see. You can just look up Gardner Goldsmith Rockfin if you want to Google it, and you'll find me.
yeah,
So
that's exactly what I'm going to do.
all right, that sounds great. Yeah, so we'll see if people have some thoughts on this, and you know, I'm sure
Yeah,
people.
read a comment or two. I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to give me your comments, everybody. I see Jason Barker is in the chat and Tom Cooper is in the chat. Looks like Rhonda is in the chat as well. Rhonda, these are amazing people. And Tom, just to let you know, many of us met on the David Knight Rockfin channel, and we were all in the chat. And I had done a fill in for David about a year ago on New Year's Eve. And David used to host in the morning for InfoWars, Alex Jones's channel, and Alex fired him. And so David has done his own thing. And it's been quite an amazing experience watching David Knight handle everything on his own online, and he and his son, I should say, and his wife, his family do it all as a team. But it is really something else, and it sort of makes me think about what you have done with Borderlands Press and your family and all the good people there. Here is a question from Rhonda, and Rhonda, thank you so much. Rhonda says,
How do I get on the website? By the way, I go to ROCKFIN.
yeah, just skip the C. So it's ROKFIN. So if you Google ROKFIN and Gardner Goldsmith, the channel will probably come up. But if you go into Rockfin, they have a search engine in there. You can put up Gardner Goldsmith or Liberty Conspiracy. So yeah. So yeah, we have some great comments. A Syrian girl is actually just down in Massachusetts, Tom, not too far from me here in southern New Hampshire. And so if you were still up here, we could probably all hang out. A Syrian girl, Tom used to live up in the New London area, way up north. So here's a question for you, Tom, as you search from Rhonda Tate. Rhonda says, so does he, Tom, see any way to combat this? It's really got momentum. And I don't know whether you might mean generally or specifically, Rhonda, but perhaps you might want to address this in your personal experience, Tom. And then I've got another question.
It's really weird. I've been approached, through the social media and internet, that 4 or 5 different lawyers who are readers and fans or whatever have offered their services if I want to go after HWA.
Yeah.
And I have no desire to go after HWA,
Yeah.
for several reasons. One, they don't have any money, and two, they've tilted so far left. They're like a freighter that took a torpedo in their engine room, and they're just listing over until they go down. And I will take no pleasure in taking part in that.
Yeah, it's in a death spiral, Tom. You mentioned that convention that we used to attend in Rhode Island every summer always was just a wonderful, great time. People playing music.
God, so much fun.
Yeah, and they tell them a little bit about how they're changing what can actually be put on, and what used to be put on, and what's being eliminated there for the sake of wokeness.
Well, it's a shame because it was a convention of writers and readers and fans that went on for at least 20 years, and it was never contentious. It was like a big family gathering. We had a softball game. We had a pool contest. We had a roast where we would roast a personality, and we had a game show and a talent show.
Yeah.
we would have all kinds of fun with our participants. But
Absolutely.
but lately there was this the usual thing. Somebody found the roast offensive, so rather than deal with the person who complained, they said, "Oh, okay, no more roast. No, we don't want to offend anybody." Well, the whole idea of a roast is to be funny and clever and offensive.
Yeah. They literally at one convention they have a gross out contest. I think I won one time. And
I remember that.
yeah,
That was a horrifying.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I still have the story around. And Tom, this is exactly the thing. Guys would get dressed up in drag. They put on boas. They'd sing. The ladies would come in and look all crazy and stuff. And they always had such a great time, just in the human condition. It was like Scottish pantomime. It was so much fun. It was like
Yeah,
Monty
no,
Python. Yeah.
that's not allowed anymore.
Well, Tom, I got a comment from a Syrian girl. She says here on Rockfin, truthfully,
By the way, I still can't find you on this website.
oh, well, I would show you I'd send you the link in email, but don't worry about it. You'll be able to
Okay.
see all the comments. You'll be able to scroll through them. I'll send you the link after the fact.
Yeah. Just go ahead. Just read
Yeah,
them up.
yeah. So a Syrian girl writes, truthfully, and you would appreciate her sarcasm. Truthfully, I'm gobsmacked to think that the horror genre of literature turns out to be a bunch of narrow-minded, self-important little identitarians. And and
And that's exactly what's happening.
yeah, and she really makes a good point because, like, I brought up the gross out thing. Tom, as you recall, at that convention that we used to attend every year, I ended up recording about, I don't know, like 10 or so stories. One was by Rick Hautala, another was by a writer I won't mention her name, but the story I recorded was about going baby hunting and eating babies. So
Oh,
for
yeah,
some
that's like,
reason, that's not offensive. But what you have to say about their trend towards wokeness on race and all this stuff, that is offensive?
oh, it's enough to get me expelled from the organization.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
When I think about all the effort I went to read this woman's story for her, because remember at the time a bunch of people dropped out. They were going to have readers. And then I put in all these sound effects and all this stuff.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Right.
Yes.
And you've been we have listened as people have read stuff and we suffer through it. We say, "Oh man." But then later we all party together, right?
Yeah.
It's so sad. It's so sad, Tom. And you're not a culprit. You're not at fault.
Well, here's one of the things that really shocked me. It was a convention, I think it was like 3 years ago, and I'm not going to mention where it happened, but I always get recruited to read my stuff because, I'm a fun reader, and I kind of perform my stories. I don't just sit there,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
love it.
and stare at the page. I
Yeah.
walk around, I engage the readers, and there's a story that I read at the KGB bar in New York that did really well. People really liked it, and I've read it at several conventions. It's called Horn of Plenty,
Yeah.
and it's a jazz story. The protagonist is he runs a jazz trio, a jazz quintet called the George Thurston Quintet, and he tells the story. He's a 300-pound black guy, and he's a pianist. Runs his thing.
Yeah.
And the story is basically about their horn. Their trumpet player finds this weird horn laying in the back of an alley, and it's kind of black, not really bronze or metallic. It's kind of this dark blue, weird substance. But once he starts playing it, he becomes like the most incredible jazz trumpet player, on the circuit.
Yeah. Yep.
And he says to he says to George Thurston, he says, he says, I'll tell you, George, and his name was what was his name? Roland Razor Blades. His name was Razor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Roland Blades, and he says, George, he says, I play that horn, and I don't play that horn so much as that horn plays me, right?
Right.
And the horn has obviously got shit going on. It's a Twilight Zone story.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, so I read it at conventions, and I read it. It's a first-person narration. I read it in the voice of George Thurston. So I read it in this kind of semi-jazz, urban, black argot. Right?
Yep. Yeah. I remember hearing it. It's great.
Oh, okay. You've heard it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and people really like it. I mean, they enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
Well, the last time I did it, I finish up, and some young woman comes up to me and says, that was really offensive. And I said, what part of that are you talking about? Right? And she says, you read that, like a black man. And I said, yeah, but the narrator of the story is a black guy.
Right.
I mean, would you prefer me to read it like a Mormon or a Latvian? What exactly is the problem with verisimilitude? Right?
Yeah.
Right. And she says, "What's that?"
Oh.
You're trying to confuse me.
Oh man. See, jeez. And it's funny because.
And you know what? I looked at her and I said, "Madam, I think we're done here."
Well, look, Tom, I know I better get going, and I know that you're going to have to get going, but I did want to mention Rhonda Tate mentions one other little item to bring up here, which is a really, it brings back a lot of fond memories. She says, I love the old Dean Martin roasts, as you say, those roast things. And it is amazing because they suck so much of the color and fun out of multiculturalism
Well, they really have. And I made a joke. I said, why? Because they stopped this quiz show too, right? And they said it because Greg has been really sick. He had heart issues and stuff, and Doug stopped going to the convention.
There's a couple people who go to the convention with us, folks.
Yeah, and they would always run the game show.
Yeah.
So I made a joke. I said, "Oh wow, did you stop the game show because smart white guys kept winning it, right?" Oh my God, the knives again came out.
It's incredible. You can't bring up the obvious. It is the elephant in the room.
You can't even joke about it.
It's so sad, Tom.
I know they didn't stop the game show because of that, but you can't even joke about it.
Well, I know a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen for you, what you're thinking about and stuff. But right now, it's great to know that, I'm getting to talk to you now, Tom, just as a friend, regardless of what's going on. It's just great to talk to you because you're so much fun. And I like your attitude. You're
a real friend. And you know what, Gardner? I value that more than any of this other bullshit. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to go up and stand on the ramparts of the Alamo, and I found out who came up and stood with me,
I know what you're saying, man. Yeah, it's like we got Davy Crockett, and we're going for it, man. It's like, and as I mentioned to you on the phone, I think a while ago, it's not Thelma and Louise, going off in a blaze of glory. We're standing here having a good time, and we got lots of great days ahead of us. And I like your attitude. You're taking it very, very low key. And, sort of seeing how it all goes. And those people, they can burn up, they can burn, not burn in hell or whatever, but they can get themselves so angry and agitated. Let them go ahead. Let them go ahead.
There's only so much they can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, there's nothing you can do about it. As I mentioned to people, Tom, somebody asked me a while back, when I was doing talk radio, what drives me. And I said, well, in the past, I used to go up to Concord in the capital of New Hampshire and try to get things changed. I was like, I'd much prefer now just to maybe win over one person or have a conversation with somebody that's a good conversation. And I can take that with me and they can take it with them. As I mentioned to you, I've been reading the Bible a lot more. Maybe the FBI will go after me if I can convert to Catholicism. I don't know if you saw that story, but they're going after.
Oh God, the people going to Latin mass
Yeah.
are radicals now.
Who would have known when you were writing Blood of the Lamb that it would come to this, right?
Oh my God.
It's the best.
Absolutely, you can't make this shit up.
I
right?
know, it's insane. It's so crazy. Oh man. But anyway, Tom, it's great to talk to you. And again, just for the solids, what I'd like for people to do if they get the opportunity, one or two people go to borderlandspress.com, check it out, see if there's a couple of interesting items there, and keep going back there. And Tom, what I'd like to do in the future is sort of lay the groundwork down the line to maybe do a couple projects with you. I think it'd be really, really cool.
Well, I have a project you're going to do with me, and you know what that is.
Yeah. All right, man. Okay, all right. I'm digging it.
Give me a link so I can see. I couldn't get in. Send me a link so I can see what you're talking about here.
All right.
I'm not very net savvy.
No problem. No problem. It'll have to be after the fact, of course, but I'll send you the link.
No big deal. Thank you, brother. You are a brother in arms. You know that.
Yeah, man. It's good stuff, and give my regards to all your family. And folks, can I mention what used to be on your license plate, by the way, Tom? Can I mention what used to be on your license plate?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Do you want to describe it to people? Was it your wife's vehicle or your family vehicle?
It was an Elizabeth's New Hampshire plate. It was WHSJGL.
Who is John Galt?
Yeah. And she got pulled over by a trooper one time, right? Because she was going over the speed limit.
Yeah.
And he walks up to her car and he says, "That's my favorite book." And he did not give her a ticket.
Nice. You picked the right woman, Tom Monteleone. You picked the right woman. Very good. Well, thanks so much, Tom. You're a real, as you say, brother in arms and a great mentor to me. Wonderful writer and just a wonderful.
Hey, we've had some good dinners too, huh?
Oh, big time. Like I said, I didn't tell people all the story about when my book debuted over in Brighton and they had no book, but that dinner that we had after that with you and me, F. Paul Wilson and Heather Graham, Heather's husband, that was great. Right on the shore of the English Channel. What a great time.
Well, yeah, because you know what? It didn't matter that the book wasn't there. We know you were there.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm thinking about, we had dinner in down in Rhode Island on the seacoast one time, and that was wonderful too. We were talking about abortion and pro-life, and it was such a great, everybody just had a great exchange of ideas over great food.
And we all weren't in agreement. I thought that was great.
Yeah, Tom. Boy, man, I love you, man. It's just great to talk to you, dude. And it's a weird thing coming from, a generation behind, reading your stuff. And, I would go into the Harvard bookstores and the Harvard Coop or whatever and pick up a magazine like Cemetery Dance and read the stuff by this guy. And, one of my heroes, man. And I love it. It's great. It's good stuff.
Well, you know what? You know where to find me, man.
Right on. All right, everybody. We'll say farewell to Tom Monteleone. We'll keep tabs on.
Thank you, everyone. I've really enjoyed this.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure, Tom. And I hope people will go to, and I'm bringing up on the computer screen right now, Tom, full screen, full steam ahead, borderlandspress.com. Tom Monteleone, thanks, man.
Take care, man.
All right, but I'll hang up and I'll call you later or text you later.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, brother. All right, bye-bye. Tom Monteleone, everybody, and boy, what a guy. What a good guy. Yep. So there you go. I'm going to go into the chat, and I've had to put it off a little bit here for a few days, everybody, but I've had to put it off a little bit for the Fight for 15, but what I ought to do is read some Tom Monteleone short fiction. Maybe I'll have him send me one, and I'll read it out loud, or maybe he could read one out loud. Maybe we could get a copy of that jazz story. It's a good story. It's really cool, and his voice work on it is fantastic. As you saw in the beginning of that, the video I was playing a little bit earlier with the Funky Werepig interview, he's done theatrical things. He's got that. He's got that ability. So go into the Rockfin chat, everyone, and just say hi. And I want to thank Tom Cooper, man. Yeah. Hey, Tom, when you say what's your favorite beer, all I can think of is Blue Velvet. Heineken. Yeah. Singing Candy Colored Clown. And then that line in that movie, one of the lines in that movie it's just weird. Like, he put his disease in me. Like, ugh. Strange stuff, man. Strange stuff. So, let's see. We got former member. Wish you well, Tom. And I'm glad he will see that when he gets into the chat, you guys. So feel free to put any messages in there you want to in the Rockfin chat, and look him up on the website. Please do. Borderlands Press. He's a courageous guy, and really just an amazing influence on my writing career. Really, really cool. So yeah. Have any of you watched the Super Friends What's Up meme of the Bud commercial? Oh, I've got to see that. I've got to see that. So, all right, I better get going, you guys. I'm over time. I got to get dinner too. So I'm just gonna microwave stuff. It's actually interesting. I don't know whether I'll be able to do this, but for the next few days, I'm going to be going back and forth between where I normally live and my, if you can call it normal, and my brother's house, because I'm taking care of their cats. And I'll show you pictures sometime, but they are lynx hybrids, and they were both strays. And they're big, really big. They're lynx hybrids, definitely lynx hybrids. If you get the opportunity, you might want to go on YouTube. I won't do it right now. You might want to go on YouTube and check out a channel called Lynx Hybrid Channel. And you'll see they all have this sort of meow where it's like the uptalker, which used to only be women from Australia or Valley girls, but they meow sort of like that. And they breed them with a few different types. The lynx, they breed them with tabbies, with Siamese, a lot of different kinds of cats. And they're beautiful cats, and they're very intelligent. They're the IQ of like a dog. Really smart cats, and they stick right by your side. They're amazing creatures. So I'm going to be hanging out with them, and I would love it if I could do one of the shows from my brother's place with the cats around and show you the cats. I would just love it. So, okay, one more thing just before we go. I do want to mention, check out over at Tom's website. You can see Blood of the Lamb is a really cool book. And as you know, Tom was brought up Catholic. Wayward Pines, a television series, was based on those. And so that's pretty darn cool that they've got Wayward Pines. They put out special editions of those. And Borderlands has a lot of really, really cool special editions. And if Tom is talking about what I think he's talking about, if I get to work with him on something, that is going to be pretty darn cool. So check it out, everybody. Really interesting stuff. And I think you'll like Tom's work a lot. And in the meantime, I want to say thank you again, everyone. Thank you for letting me be myself, and thank you for being friends. Really appreciate it. So I'll get ready to head out and microwave something. I don't know what it'll be, but I really had a great time talking to Tom. He's a really good guy. And I want to thank you all again for sticking around. Kind of an interesting program tonight. I hope you didn't mind me bringing the personal thing in with Tom. When I saw that he had hit the Daily Beast and that they were slamming him, it was unbelievable. And I know that his name was trending on Twitter for a while. That's how bad it has been for Tom Monteleone. Just amazing. Amazing stuff. So with that said, I will give you a little outro and say thank you so much, everybody. See you tomorrow for David Knight's show. And as they say,